Well, to call this meeting of the York County Council to order. Councilmember Joel Hamilton to give the invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Dear Lord, thank you for the opportunity to gather here in this chamber to conduct the business of our blessed county. Lord, I pray for wisdom in our decision-making tonight. And Lord, please be with the children as well as the educators as they return to our schools and the men and women in uniform serving our county. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Under appearances, Lee Van Blarcom and Walter Sherman to address council regarding the foundation of the Carolinas Capital Projects Fund.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the County Council. I'm told that you folks like to keep these presentations under 10 minutes, so I'm happy to announce this one's less than 5.
There you go.
But hopefully it will take a lot of each of your time up going forward. I'm Walter Sherman, and my address is 102 Pebble Beach Lane in Fort Mill. I'm joined this evening by Ms. Lee Van Blarcom and Mr. Alan Miller. We were the 3 appointees made in 2014 by the Cultural and Heritage Foundation to serve on the Cultural and Heritage Commission Capital Projects Advisory Board to the Foundation for the Carolinas. It's a long title. After nearly 6 years of mostly fruitless servitude, this past July the 29th, we submitted our joint letter of resignation from that board. Each of you received a copy of that letter, which details most of our reasons for resigning. If you've not read it, more copies are available here tonight. Additionally, we ask that our letter be entered into the minutes of this meeting because it provides additional background. We are here tonight to ask that you, the County Council, get more directly involved in museum capital expenditures and pay much closer attention to how millions of taxpayer and donor dollars are being spent while more and more downstream costs are added by a Cultural and Heritage Commission that each of you either approved or appointed. As background for those of you who were not on council at the time, about 15 years ago, approximately 60 acres of highly valued land was donated and a great deal of donor money was raised by the Cultural and Heritage Foundation to build a new flagship museum. When the 2008 financial crisis occurred, the devastation to the project was enormous and the project had to be abandoned. However, after all obligations were met, nearly $8 million remained. Later, a strong rebound in the stock market added another nearly $1 million, bringing the total to almost $9 million. Under a binding agreement with the county, the money was placed in a fund at the Foundation for the Carolinas. The advisory board was appointed to guide the foundation for investment and distribution to cultural and heritage museums. The money could be used for capital projects only. Early on, the 3 of us appointed by the Cultural and Heritage Foundation urged the other 4 advisory board members to leave a great deal of the corpus money invested and let it grow, thereby creating a continuous revenue stream to fund capital projects for many years to come. That and every other proposal we ever made fell on the deaf ears of the 4 other members and was rejected mostly by a vote of 4 to 3. To date, over 7 of the $9 million has been applied for and granted on the basis of majority votes by the advisory board. The aforementioned 4 to 3 vote results have awarded Brattonsville well over $4 million, not all of which has been spent yet. And to what end? Brattonsville has been bleeding taxpayer dollars for years. It has never generated enough money to do the necessary ongoing maintenance. Even today, buildings need painting, roofs need fixing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Remember, the foundation money cannot be used for maintenance. All of the millions of dollars already approved for Brattonsville, which includes approximately $500,000 for land acquisition, is slated to be used for capital projects to expand the facility. Unfortunately, today, people do not seem to be visiting historical sites as they did in the past. According to Virginia news reports, even the gold standard for historic preservation, Colonial Williamsburg has seen declining admission revenues year after year. They saw their endowment value drop by $44 million between 2017 and 18 because of shortfalls in operating expenses. In 2017, their full $680 million endowment was projected to shrink to only $12 million by 2025. They've had to make severe cutbacks just to survive. Now, if that's the case at Williamsburg with all their Rockefeller money, how do you folks think Brattonsville will do going forward, having to depend more and more and even more on our taxpayer dollars? Allowing current or future spending on capital projects to continue at Brattonsville will only serve to create an even greater hemorrhage of taxpayer dollars than we already have today. The resulting additional downstream maintenance costs will continue to grow substantially year after year while bleeding us taxpayers more and more. If allowed to continue, the responsibility will rest heavily on the shoulders of each member of County Council. We're here tonight to make each of you, plus all York County citizens, including generous donors, publicly aware that after 6 years of frustration, we are no longer representing each of you and all of our county citizens on this advisory board. Thank you for your attention.
Lee? No, no. Danielle Russell, Executive Director of Keystone Substance Abuse Services, to address council regarding their need for additional funding.
Good evening. As Chairman Michael Johnson said, my name is Danielle Russell, and I am the Executive Director of Keystone Substance Abuse Services. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you tonight on the impacts of COVID-19 on Keystone. Oh, hold on. There we go. Just a brief history is York County, Keystone is York County's Substance Use Authority since 1973. This is part of the Act 301 that started in South Carolina in 1973, which designates an authority for each county in the state. So Chester County has their own authority, Lancaster County has their own authority, and York County has their own authority. Keystone is the regional inpatient unit. So we do serve Chester and Lancaster County in our inpatient, but most of our patients come from York County, South Carolina. Our inpatient unit does have 14 beds. We have 8 beds designated to withdrawal management, 6 beds designated to residential services, and then we do offer social detox if beds are available. We prioritize pregnant women and IV users. Our outpatient services are for adults and for youth. So we have intensive outpatient, which is our highest level of care, has 9 to 12 hours of services per week for those people that are in that level. And we are very unique in the sense that we do offer gender-specific groups. We offer co-occurring groups, evening groups, and we also have created a medication-assisted treatment-specific group for those that are on medication and attending group therapy. Our level 1 services obviously is a lower level. We do offer that for adults and youth. And then our medication assisted treatment is for anybody 18 years or older. Our prevention services, we do several presentations throughout the year around the community. We do churches, we do schools, and we offer a lot of different services in our prevention office and provide a lot of resources to the community. So I just kind of highlight some of the national impact of COVID on mental health and substance use. It's no secret that COVID has had an impact on mental health and substance use across the nation. You've seen on the news that mental health issues have increased due to social isolation. And to no surprise that a lot of people dealing with mental health end up basically coping with substances, so alcohol or drugs in that scenario, and they're not seeking the professional help that they need. Other news outlets I'm sure you have heard is alcohol sales are skyrocketing right now during COVID, overdoses are increasing during this pandemic, and there's not a greater need for Keystone services than right now. So this is just some DHEC preliminary data that I wanted you guys to see. This is obviously the number of opioid overdoses across the whole state of South Carolina. So the orange line is what I really want you to focus on, is that 2020 data. And you can see just in that lower chart, the running total comparison, that we are already at overdose deaths that are near the November numbers from the previous year. So this is not all related to COVID, it is a factor. There's also more potent and dangerous drugs that are out there. So this just highlights the need that we need to intervene and get the people the services as quickly as possible. And then to bring it home a little bit closer, this is overdose death, non-fatal and fatal for the past 6 months. Obviously, there's no non-fatal overdoses that we can get at the county level right now for January, February, and March. They just started releasing all the data as COVID started. But I put the non-fatal overdoses because that gives you a better picture of actually what's going on in our county. Obviously, the fatal overdoses are more pulling at those heartstrings and really an impact where people are actually dying. But there are a lot of people out there that are overdosing on a daily basis that we need to intervene with. So COVID-19 response, like many organizations, we had to respond once COVID hit our area. I think the first COVID cases started really in South Carolina around mid-March. So around mid-March, like many organizations, we decided not to fully close our doors, but to start offering telehealth services. So we did not want people coming in to our facility, but we did still want to provide services for them. So we provided assessments via telehealth, we did individual counseling telehealth, and we made sure that nobody lost any MAT medication through this and had appointments via telehealth. Our inpatient beds decreased from 14 to 9 to allow everyone to have their own room. So we lost a lot of beds due to that, and we have increased our wait lists significantly since. And as you can see, we also had no groups. Come June 1st, we kind of reevaluated, and I shouldn't say that COVID stabilized. We're trying to normalize the best we can, like many organizations. And we started offering assessments and individual MAT appointments face-to-face. So those are those one-on-one, obviously specific guidelines in place with masks, social distancing, and that kind of stuff. Prevention programs decided to continue to do virtual just because of the amount of people that would be in one room. And just because of the COVID numbers still hadn't decreased, inpatient beds stayed at 9. June 15th, we realized that our revenue, which I'll show you in a second, has significantly declined, not having groups being held. And then our patients, we were losing some of them with the individual telehealth. So we needed to be able to provide groups. So we basically allowed some groups to start back with social distancing, which you'll see in a second how the capacity of our rooms decreased as well. And then again, with COVID still going on, inpatient beds stayed at 9. So this is what it looks like for our capacity. So pre-COVID, we had about 68 seats. After COVID and utilizing 2 rooms that we did not use previously, we have 40 seats left. So we lost about 28 seats just with this change. In order to create more space for individuals to attend group, we decreased 3 IOP groups that were meeting 12 hours a week to 9 hours a week. So essentially from 4 days to 3 days. Based on our census right now, that's about 42 patients missing that extra 3 hours of services that they need. In addition to reducing the number of hours of IOP groups, Keystone decided to create additional level 1 groups just to accommodate individuals that truly needed our service. Most of these individuals staffed in this group actually needed a higher level of care, but we had to do whatever we could to try to engage them to keep them in treatment. So based on the census right now, that's about 45 patients that are in these new level 1 groups created during this time that really should be in IOP, but we don't have the capacity to do that. And the need is honestly so great right now that we're already looking for other options to create level 1 groups, looking at possibly weekend options, and seeing how else we can utilize our space without having to hire a bunch of additional staff. And this is just kind of a picture of what it looks like, the number of active patients in services from 2019 to 2020. You can see as we had to change our service options with telehealth in March, that significant decline. Now, part of that was the fear of COVID. People weren't going out, they weren't doing more things, they weren't even going to medical appointments. Other things with that is that we were trying to keep people engaged, just individual telehealth, that one-on-one, and they were used to group settings, and we were losing some of them. So we need these people to be able to receive the group services that we can offer. And just financially, this kind of shows you our potential revenue versus actual revenue. I think the graph kind of speaks for itself on what's happening in 2020. And just so you know that actually totals at the end of July is about $624,000 lost in revenue. And there's a lot of factors due to that. You can just see here that black line is the percent reduction. There's 3 months that we have 40% reduction. But part of the things that are kind of causing that is, one, obviously inpatient bed reduction. We lost 5 beds when we had to change for COVID, and an inpatient bed is $500 per day. And so when we went from groups in person to telehealth individuals, a group service per day is $130 a day. Okay, and then if you do an individual telehealth session, which we were only being able to do 1 or 2, you're looking at $50. So that's where we started losing all the revenue. We would love to be able to do a telehealth group, but it's not reimbursable by Medicaid. MCOs and our state DAOTAS office is also not reimbursing it because they need outcomes. They need to know that it's effective, but nobody can do it without getting some reimbursement. So those are other issues that have happened. And then obviously just the fewer amount of patients attending services is a factor. So what we're requesting here is we're requesting $150,000. And the reason that we're requesting this is that our main priority is to get York County citizens the help that they need. As I told you before, we serve primarily York County in our outpatient services. And so we want to make sure that they can sit in those seats and get the services that they need without having either people falling off due to individual telehealth or not even having group space. So we would love to be able to offer telehealth group services, get outcomes, pilot it for the entire state so that we can get those reimbursements that are needed. We're also looking at how can we provide other groups on Saturdays. Some people can't come during the week. We need more groups so that people can attend even while they're waiting for that seat in IOP. And if there's any money left over after that, obviously I told you we have a $625,000 deficit so far. It's just going to increase as COVID increases. It would fill that gap, but after all those things, I don't think there would be any money left over. We just want the patients to get the help that they need in our services and be able to provide the groups that we need and that we have been doing pre-COVID. And I did ask Solicitor Kevin Brackett and Sheriff Kevin Tolson to come speak on behalf of Keystone and just let them know, let you guys know what they see on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you, Danielle. Mr. Chairman, members of council, pleasure to be in front of you again after a lengthy hiatus. It's always good to be here. I feel like I've been caged up for the last 5 or 6 months. I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you about an agency in York County that is very near and dear to my heart, and I want to speak to you about them from the criminal justice perspective, because they are a partner of ours, even though you normally look at me and think about somebody who takes somebody to court and prosecutes them and tries to convince a jury to find somebody guilty. We work hand in hand because we'll never prosecute our way out of the drug problem that we have in York County or anywhere else in this country. It's a team effort. We have to focus on driving people into treatment through the criminal justice system and getting them to the Danielles of the world and to the Keystones so that they can help them overcome the addiction that's driving their criminal behavior, because that is really what this is all about. 70% of my business, about 70% of it, is driven by drugs. People either buying drugs, selling drugs, or stealing money from other people so that they have money to go buy drugs. 70%. Half my homicides are drug related. Half the people that are killed in this county, when you look at the facts and circumstances behind the case, you'll see that drugs are involved about half the time. Women are probably 33% of the remaining, and then you've got other, there's usually some domestic component, but by and large, far and away, the number one reason is drugs. So it is critical that we have an effective means of dealing with the addiction problem here. It's timely that I'm here before you today. I don't know how many of y'all read the Wall Street Journal. There was an article in today's Wall Street Journal talking about how the coronavirus has impacted and intensified the opioid epidemic that the United States is currently experiencing, and I have seen that here. Just to give you a little sobering, pardon the metaphor, sobering information so you can get some context. Since 2014, My warrants filed in general sessions in York County has gone from about 5,400 warrants filed to about 8,200. That's over 50% increase in the number of warrants. Remember what I said, 70% of my business is driven by drugs. We have a problem, and it's gotten worse. There's a number of reasons for that. But one thing hasn't changed, the need for competent, talented people who can help people address the underlying drug addiction that's driving this criminal behavior. So I am here today to speak on behalf of Keystone and reiterate what Danielle has already told you. They are a vital partner to the criminal justice system in York County. We depend on them to help lower demand by eliminating addiction, case by case, person by person. If they come to you for help, it's because they need it to help people here in York. So I'd ask you to consider seriously giving them the assistance they need at this point in time, especially now that we are seeing such an increase in the use of opioids, both here and around the country. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the council. Let me start out by saying I always hate following Brackett. He's always hard to follow when you listen to him speak. But I come to you this evening, and I'll be brief, as a board member of Keystone. I've had experiences with Keystone throughout my career, and reiterate what Solicitor Brackett said about their critical component in the criminal justice system. They have been in existence since my career started, and I've made many trips there for individuals who needed help. I felt compelled to join the board, and I come speaking on behalf of the board, and I'll tell you about our board. They're a very diverse group of individuals. Many of you probably know many of the board members. They're very thoughtful, they're very involved, and on evenings when I'm not needed here for Sheriff's Office business matters, I'm at a board meeting for the Keystone Board of Directors, and I just tell you that they're a very serious group of individuals who want to help our community. I again reiterate what Solicitor Brackett said about our relationship with Keystone and what the role that they play in our county. I'll tell you, just in 2020, we have had 27 administrations of Narcan, and I say we as the Sheriff's Office, the police officers, not the EMS folks, not the doctors, not the medical folks, overdoses that we respond to, that we have administered Narcan to an individual, and I think we all know what Narcan is. It's the opioid blocking effect and reversal effect on the body, and it literally brings people back from the dead. That's 27, we had 25 saves. We average about 20 overdose calls, and that's just Sheriff's Office. That's not countywide, that's not the municipalities, that's just the unincorporated areas. About 20 overdose calls a month. We currently have 333 inmates as of this morning in the detention center. 66 of them are females. That's over 20% of our population. When I took office, about 5% of our population were females. If you go on the inmates online, you can see the list of charges. Invariably, if you look in the detention center, if there's a female charge, it is 95% of property crime, and the property crime is fueled by a drug addiction. We need to help, what we do, we need to do our part to try to help everybody, but to see the female population experience this rise in addiction is very concerning and alarming to me. And we're gonna pay for it one way or the other. It's so easy for a solicitor, myself, and everybody else to stand up here and ask the council to make tough decisions on funding. Y'all have the hard part, because there's invariably an issue with any ask for any funding, and so many competing entities that are asking for money, and I don't envy your position. Like I said, this is easy for me to get up and advocate on behalf of Keystone, but I'll tell you this, the ask is $150,000, and you break that down, that's at the cost per day of an inmate at the detention center, that's 2,142 nights. With the number of inmates that we have in the detention center right now, that's a total of 6 nights operating the detention center. So the ask is, if we could keep, Lord, I wish we could keep all 333 out, and the vast majority of them do have either mental health or drug addiction issues, sometimes both. So one way or the other, we'll pay for it. I would much rather see us paying
a little bit more money outside the detention center than continuing to pay the money inside the detention center. So I fully support the ask. Again, I recognize the difficulty and the issues surrounding any ask from council for additional funding, but your sheriff thinks that it's well worth it, and I appreciate the consideration. Thank you for listening.
So just thank you guys for your time and hearing myself, Sheriff Tolson, and Solicitor Kevin Brackett tonight. I'm willing to take any questions if you guys have any.
Any questions?
I guess I'll ask this. Since you said Lancaster and Chester are served by this group, have those folks been approached to also contribute? Have you received a response from them?
Yeah, so we serve Lancaster and Chester mainly in our inpatient unit, so we do ask for them to fund parts of that. We reached out to Chester County, Chester Healthcare Foundation, and then this is actually the first year we're getting funding from Lancaster County.
So you did get funding from them?
We are, yes, ma'am.
Can you tell me how much?
10,000 from Lancaster, and then between Chester Healthcare and Chester County, I want to say it's closer to 25,000.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. If, Mr. Hudspeth, if you would have, you and Mr. Madden review this and report back to council, kind of a recommendation, not tonight, but at our next meeting, that would be helpful. Public forum. Mr. Cater. Yo, Mr. Cater, you have the opportunity to speak during our public hearing. You do not have to say, if you spoke now, you would be limited to 2 minutes. You can speak for as long as you'd like, although I don't encourage that, but you can speak for as long as you'd like at a public hearing. So it's probably, I would recommend that you wait for the public hearing. All right, very good. Ms. Cater, I assume you're the same, and Mr. Nichols and Mr. Patel, I again would urge you to do the same, because it'll be up in 15 minutes, up for vote. All right, all right. Consent agenda. Anyone have any items to remove from consent?
Yes, sir. I would like to pull item number 7. That's in reference, that's the third reading on the stormwater ordinance. That's the only one.
And you are deferring that to another day.
Yes, yes, so can I go ahead and do that now?
I think we're going to actually have to put it under, we can do it right now, we can do it right. Mr.
I was
Kendrick.
asking you wait till it becomes an action item on the removed portion of the agenda.
Yeah, I'm going to move it to old business number 5. At which time you can move to defer it whenever you would like. Any other item to be moved? Is there a motion on consent?
Move to approve as amended.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, hearing none, motion passes. Public hearings. Council to hold a public hearing and consider third reading of an ordinance to authorize the sale of 0.22 of a mile of right-of-way, 0.814 of an acre, more or less, located in York between the intersections of Railroad Avenue and Galilean Road, and Railroad Avenue and Johnson Road, identified as a portion of tax map number 07015010001, to entertain an existing offer to purchase the property in exchange for granting the county portions of tax map number 07015010001 and 07010070017 by deed, to allow for relocation of the Railroad Avenue curve in order to improve the intersection of U.S. Highway 321, Railroad Avenue, Johnson Road, and Galilean Road, to authorize the chairman to execute the property exchange agreement and deeds, to provide for a public hearing, and provide for other matters relating thereto. Is there anyone here who would like to speak against? Anyone like to speak in favor?
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, hearing none. Is there a motion for third reading?
Move to approve third reading.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, hearing none, motion passes. Rezoning action, public hearing and consider first reading, case number 19-32, tax map 456000016, to rezone from AGC to RUD1, 4.7 acres, located at 1766 South Pyram Road, York. Is there anyone here who would like to speak against? Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor? Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, hearing none, motion passes. We have a motion as to
Move to approve.
first reading.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, hearing none, motion passes. Rezoning action, public hearing and consider first reading, case number 20-05, tax map number 65300000015, to rezone from RD2 to BD3, 3.11 acres at 1835 Coltharp Road, Fort Mill. Would there anyone like to speak against? Mr. Cater, that's you. Come on up.
My name's Bill Cater. I live at 1866 Pleasant Road, Fort Mill, and our family's on this property right beside where they want to rezone. We've lived at this property all my life, in Fort Mill. But Daddy got this land back when he got out of the war, WW2. And we've held on to it so long. And they want to build a hotel beside us. Well, everybody thought that Coltharp Road was the dividing point between businesses on the right-hand side and residential on the left-hand side. And that's how it's been forever. So we don't understand why someone can come in and say, we want to build a motel here, and with nobody saying anything against it. I got 50 signatures right here of everybody that lives on Coltharp Road down to, near 77 and Pleasant Road. And not one person said they would be in favor of this. Everybody said, we got enough businesses around here as it is. There needs to be, and it's set out in a format that the county is laid out. So it's another thing I'm real concerned about is we have 7 acres, more or less, with some houses built on it, et cetera, that I grew up in as a kid, and my dad lived there, and my grandpa. But one of the things that really concerns me, we have like a 3-acre lake right in the way of where they're would drain into from this motel. Well, we have migratory birds that come in. We got geese, we got mallards, wood ducks, it's just a sight to see, to get out on your front porch and just be able to look and see what kind of animals that come in. And one of the most curious animals that we have that comes in is a osprey. Well, we got ospreys coming in, but we have eagles come in, believe it or not, ospreys come in. And you'll see them circle the lake. And when they circle the lake, they go down and they grab them a fish. And they take off. Well, we wouldn't be able to see that because we don't want our lake polluted. So that's another thing about this. And we just want to rely on y'all, our county council. And I know what y'all going through. I used to be on some of the things for the county a long time ago. But I'm 70 years now, and I want to try to protect this land as much as possible. from going to the business. Any of y'all got any questions, sir? Y'all did receive this, didn't you?
Yes, sir, we got that as an email, and we don't ask questions, we just listen to you, Mr. Cater.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, guys.
Ms. Cater, would you like to speak?
There are already 5 hotels at this exit off of 77. I believe there are also 5 at the Carowinds exit, which is much busier and much more industrial. This site would have single-family residences that already exist on 3 sides of it, so it just kind of plops down into all this residential area. So seems like another one would be wrong in that place, too much, and so out of character with the surroundings. So I'm very much against having another hotel join the rather crowded conditions at that exit off of 77.
Jeff Nichols, I'm just gonna kind of go through this list and see.
I'm just here to support.
Understood. Mr. Patel, all right. Would anyone else like to speak against? Would anyone like to speak in favor?
Yes.
Feel free to come forward. Name and address and.
Hi, thanks for taking the time. I know you guys have different choices to make, but I appreciate you guys giving us the time. My name is, I think I can start the slides. That's my name right there. Clarence Sipcall, go by Clancy. It's the Colthorpe proposal. And before I start, I'd like to say one thing, that I do respect Mr. Cater and Mrs. Cater's opinion. And I'd like to let that be known. And so I'd like to be able to start, and I guess, how do I just hit the arrow button? Right. Okay, just so you know who I am, I'm the president of Solera Hospitality. We own and operate hotels based in Columbia, South Carolina. I migrated to Charlotte in 1981 from Youngstown, Ohio, and I've never gone back. One of those guys that never leaves the South. 30 years of experience. That dates me a little bit. Developed and managed over 30 successful hotels, and I live in South Carolina. And the only thing I'll say is, when I first got my first haircut in Charlotte, when I first moved, they told me there's only one thing better than Yankee money. And I go, what's that? And they said Southern hospitality. And so that's the only brevity I'll have for the rest of the day, since I'm a little outnumbered. But anyway, and it's true. Okay, right now, it's RD2U, 2 permitted uses. And I'm not gonna go through all the different uses, but it's an adult, I mean, we can, right now, if I purchase this property, I can make it not only just a hotel, but obviously that's what business I'm in. And that's what I'm used to doing. I've done retail projects as well. But right now, you can, if I just wanted to build an adult daycare center or a child care center, if I want to put up condominiums, apartment buildings, modular homes, nursing homes, I think I have the proper zoning for that. I'm not going to say I'm going to do that, but those are some of the uses right now that can be done. I still feel, though, that's not my forte. My forte is in the hotel business, and I feel it's the best use for this land at this point in time. Now, here's some of the benefits of BD3 hotel benefits. It's gonna create some jobs, which I think is the number one factor in that is on America's minds right now. We don't know how many jobs, anywhere from 25 to 50, and these are real jobs. These are people who would create new jobs for people that are living in the greater Fort Mill, York County area. Our annual property taxes, from what we estimate, is $300,000 to $400,000 annually. Now, if you mark that times 10 years, that's $3 to $4 million in money that you can spend possibly on Keystone or other uses. Accommodation tax revenue for a community. You also receive an accommodation tax revenue. I'm not saying it's going to be a Marriott, it could be, but that's who we normally do business with. But I'm not guaranteeing or saying that it's going to be a definite Marriott brand, but it'll be a high quality brand that would be a top tier, top three in the industry. It'd be a high quality neighbor with low impact to adjoining properties. I'll get to that in a little bit from some slides. So you'll see that. You talk about needs for high quality hotels. There's only 4 hotels on this side of the interstate. There's only one at that Coltharp intersection, which is the Home 2, just been built. There's 2 other ones farther by, and then there's one across the interstate, Marriott Courtyard. Just to let you know, that Marriott Courtyard last year ran approximately 94%, which is almost unheard of in the industry that runs an average of 60 to 65% pre-COVID. So if you look at that, there seems like there's a high demand for people wanting to come to Fort Mill. They have choices. They can go to Charlotte. Carowinds has a lot of hotels. Or all of this can be benefits for this area. And it's going to even increase. So if I don't build them, someone else is going to build them. You look at area needs high quality hotels. You got the Panthers coming in, the hospital coming in, and you got some corporations coming in. They're going to need a place to stay. Where would you rather have them stay? In York County or rather Charlotte? We don't want to increase high density housing here. I think that's one thing I've heard of was, we don't want to build condominiums and apartments on top of each other. So those are some of the benefits that I think the hotel can do if we do a hotel. And we've had a very successful track record, or else I wouldn't be able to do this. Okay. We get a blank slide. Excuse us. Okay. The proposed site is going to be 1842, and if you look at this is an overview of where we tentatively planned to place the hotel. You can see there's a detention pond between there. There's going to be a 30 to 55 foot tree buffer. So the people living in Habersham or Mr. Cater, I don't think will even see this if they're on their property. And there's also a retaining wall to the left. Now, this is still preliminary, and we have to get approval from site engineering from York County. So this isn't going to be an eyesore, to what I think, for the people living behind us. In fact, they'll have a better view of the Home 2 than they will of us. I can't. Andre's my son-in-law. And he's expecting a child. I'm sorry, my daughter is. And they live in Fort Mill, or right down the street. Okay, here's a view from Habersham. Andre did this slide, closest hotel tree buffer to stay. And then he did this, because he's technically more efficient than I am. We don't think the tree buffer is a positive and the elevation difference. Andre, is there anything you'd like to say on this slide? Because you're the one who created it. Sure. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Andre Fontana. So what we kind of did here on this specific slide was just notice that the elevation difference between where Habersham is on the backside is so much lower to where the actual tree line starts and then goes upward. So you're looking at an additional 30 feet of where the tree line is to not even see the hotel, for even visibility. So that's just something that we wanted to show here, and between the buffer that's in there. Now the 55-foot buffer on this side is the minimum that we can do. We can do, you know, a little bit more depending on how we, how the site comes in to finalize on the site survey.
Existing area in the future development, there is a home too, right across the entrance from Habersham. Retail, there's a lot of there's a Saxby's, Harris Teeter, Moe's, and Walgreens, and then there's more. And then future, Lidl is supposed to go, possibly, owns the land next to us, or across the street. And then there's also a Prescott Family Dentistry, which is off of Clover. Okay, go to the next one. You know, like I said, you guys have there's so much going on. It's you guys, I'm not supposed to say that. But y'all have so much going on here in this area in York County, it's gonna explode, right, in my opinion. And you've got festivals, you got river walks, Rock Hill's getting a lot of tournaments. The Panthers headquarters is coming, I think, next exit down or two, which is going to encourage more growth and accommodations. And LPL Financial is growing. I just went through and toured that. It's unbelievable. And then I think the planned hospital, Piedmont Hospital. Next one. There's going to be, like I just said, there's a surge of going to be leisure and corporate travelers. There is a lack of hospitality businesses in this Fort Mill area. Contrary to what you may hear, you're going to see, if it's not going to be me, it's going to be someone else. And there's lost opportunity. I mean, we don't have to talk about that, but I mean, there's also local businesses that are going to benefit. Gas stations, restaurants. There's going to be direct benefits from someone staying here. They're going to have to eat. And so the restaurants are going to benefit. I think, see, there's some of them right here. So these are some of the benefits to the local businesses that are in this area. All right. I guess in closing, thank you for your support and consideration. I guess in closing, y'all are elected officials, and and I'm assuming that you're acting in the best interest of the community and also the neighbors and everyone that lives here. And the decision is, do you want to create more revenue and improve the accommodation level of Fort Mill? Or do you want it to go elsewhere? And if it's not gonna be me, like I said, this land, if I buy it or not, someone else is gonna buy land around here and they may build something else. But I'm not gonna build the condominiums, I'm not gonna build apartments if I buy the land. And so the high density, you can forget about that, because that's just not my expertise. So I guess I have two other people here. Debbie Weatherly, she's the Senior Vice President of Tuttle Realty. She's got a few things to say. And then if there's any technical questions on storm drainage, impact on wildlife, I have our engineer here, Brandon Pridemore, and he can answer any questions when it comes to any impact on the environment. Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Chairman and fellow council members. I'm Debbie Weatherby. I have lived and/or worked in York County since 2002. I have been a broker with the Tuttle Company since 2007. Clancy is my client. And of course, we are under contract on the Colthorpe site. I understand everyone's concerns, but I also understand, I think that there's a lot of benefit. And I have provided each of you with an email from Rob Youngblood, our chamber president, and Billy Dunlap for Visit York. The economic impact will be significant for York County, for our schools. We've done the traffic impact analysis. The access to the hotel would be on Colthorpe and would align with the existing access for Home 2 and the Lytle site that already exists. And then there's another remaining site that's BD3 at the corner of Colthorpe. I think the one thing that everybody has to consider is, and I think it is why people get concerned, is that the fear of who's going to be occupying a hotel. This is a Class A high-end hotel with a gentleman who's had 30 years experience developing hotels that is going to be corporate and leisure and family travel. The hotel will have a lot less impact on traffic than, say, a nursing home or a daycare or a school that are all currently allowed uses, or a high-density residential. So I think that if you look at Colthorpe and how everything's positioned, we worked with the engineer to ensure that the hotel was positioned so it had the least impact on the residents. But people who stay in these hotels are gonna come in the morning, or they're gonna check in the afternoon, they're gonna leave early in the morning. We've got Kingsley across the interstate. That's a 660-acre future corporate development with 150 acres already developed. I know York County wants to see more corporate growth coming into the county, especially in light of the COVID pandemic. I think you're gonna see many corporate campuses decide that they don't wanna be in the city complex of, say, the uptown Charlotte, but they're gonna want to be at bigger corporate campuses. So I would ask each of you to look at this seriously, consider the economic impact, and hopefully make the right decision, whatever that might be. Thank you. Brandon, any questions that you might have?
I'm just here for technical questions.
Unless you have, we don't have questions. So.
My name is Andre Fontana. I live in the area. Also do a little bit of business in the Fort Mill area as well. You know, I actually had the pleasure of moving here about 4.5 years ago because I saw the increase in what was going on in the area, the growth, the amount of businesses that were coming, the sports activity, to the river walks. The community that was being built here in York County was amazing, and that's why we came, right, for the support. And you know, being a small business owner as well, you know, I understand that the residents have a big impact, but also the businesses and the people that are opening up small and medium businesses too. And I spoke to 20+ local company or local businesses, the people that are working every day from 8 to 5 o'clock in the area, and they were excited to hear of the potential of having more business and travelers and people to spend money in their businesses. Whether it's sending a UPS through PostNet, or it's going to eat at Moe's, or going to Chick-fil-A or Wendy's. When you look at the amount that we can bring, it's anywhere between 100 to 150 people a day that are coming in and spending money for more revenue, more tax dollars, and to support the local businesses in the area. So, when we talk about continuing to build, the 160 exit and keeping the revenue here and supporting the local businesses and the residents that invested in this territory, in this area, this is a part of it. And seeing kind of the success that Solera has had through this and through pandemics, through recessions, being able to keep up the percentages and occupancies and think of new ways to create people to come in when there is no travelers, that says a lot. So I, appreciate the consideration, and like they said, you guys do have a tough job here, but I can rest assured that there is not a lot of better opportunities to have business owners invest in the area like Solera and what's happening to York County. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in favor?
Move to close.
Second.
Hang on one second. Sir, you raised your hand. Are you in favor or opposition?
I'm opposed. I didn't know there was going to be.
We do opposition in the beginning, then we do favor then, but we're gonna let you speak because you've driven to York, so.
All right, sorry. My first hearing, I guess. So my name is Will Cater, the son of Bill. And I live in Fort Mill now. I don't know if it has to be on, I live at 1148 Market Street in Fort Mill. Grew up in Fort Mill all my life. Went to school down in Charleston. When that started to expand, blow up, went to Mount Pleasant. That started to expand and blow up. Came back home, and it started to expand and blow up. And you guys have a very tough decision to make, I understand that. Before coming, I actually talked to the assistant manager of the Marriott that's in Fort Mill now, and the manager of the Hilton that's in Rock Hill, and they both agreed that right now for Fort Mill, Rock Hill area, there's an oversaturation of hotels because they've been building so many in Rock Hill, because most of the stuff is in Rock Hill. They consider Fort Mill to be a residential area, Rock Hill to be residential/commercial. I guess I didn't really have too much to say. I think I would be kicking myself if I didn't come up here and say something.
The goal is not to get into a back and forth.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, hang on. No, we're gonna close, there's been a motion to close public hearing. Is there a second? There was a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Is there a motion?
Move to approve. First reading.
Second.
Any discussion? And I'm going to lead off discussion. This is in my district, and I have told the developer this through an email to their agent, that they need to meet with the community. They need to have a conversation with the neighbors. That includes Mr. Cater and everyone who lives behind them in Habersham and everyone along that Pleasant Road. There are 3 readings on all rezonings. 1 reading does not equal passage. It takes 3 readings. I am concerned that Pleasant Road in the next 10 to 15 years will be a 5-lane road. Now, I'm not concerned about that. I know that's going to happen because we need it to move traffic better. As that happens, that area is going to begin to change. I don't want anyone to think that we have to change it today, though. And I hear the concerns that Mr. Cater and all of those neighbors who have written me emails, and there have been tons who have said that. And I am willing to, I have had 7 years on county council. I have never voted down any rezoning on first reading. I have always let them go to second reading, and I'm going to do that tonight. I have voted many a rezoning down at second reading. I don't have a problem doing that. But I always want the developer to have an opportunity to talk to the people, to the neighbors, because I think the neighbors matter. So I ask that you all have a real conversation, obviously not here tonight, but in some sort of setting that would allow the neighbors to be heard, and that you all could maybe give a presentation and show elevations and see if a compromise can be worked out. Because as a compromise comes better from you than from here, because you all will probably use a scalpel and we tend to use a machete to say yes or no. So I would encourage both sides to do it. It does not mean I am going to vote for this. It does not mean I'm going to vote against it. That is 2 weeks from now. But hopefully some good decisions can be made during that 2-week period, because I certainly hear the neighbors and their concerns. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Oh, sorry.
If the discussion.
Mr. Winkler.
Sorry. I just wanted to say I usually try to support first readings as well. I think it gives opportunity for developers and the neighbors to make sure they're on the same page and understand what's going on. But I do have a lot of concerns about it as well because staff and planning commission have recommended denial. So I will allow it to go through this time, but I'll have a lot of concerns and a lot of things I'm going to have addressed before I'll vote for it on the second reading.
I guess I would, since I've made the motion, I do want to say to the Cater family, you've been heard, and I would encourage you to remain involved and to be an active participant in those discussions. Understand that typically the council member whose district this is in, we defer to them, and if there's not some resolution here, I will tell you that I've heard that concern, and I'm not at all, my vote here tonight is not indicative of future votes. I see that there's been some denials, and I'm paying attention to that.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, hearing none.
No,
Motion.
I'm a no.
Oh, no. Motion passes. Rezoning action, public hearing and consider first reading case number 20-07, tax map number 605-0000021, to rezone from RUD to BD2, 2.8 acres located at 2961 to 3005 Saluda Road in Rock Hill. My understanding is this has been requested to be deferred. However, if anyone is here who would like to speak against this matter, please feel free to come up, but this will be back on our agenda on October the 19th. For a public hearing. It will be renoticed and a public hearing on October 19th. Is there anyone who would like to speak against or in favor?
Move close.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Is there a motion to defer till October? Well, it's been pulled off the agenda by
I'll go ahead and make the motion. Move to defer the matter to October 19th.
Second.
The first and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, hearing none. This is deferred. Old business. Council to consider third reading of an ordinance adopting a public education facilities impact fee to be imposed on all new residential development in the Clover School District. Number 2, pursuant to York County Ordinance number 2718, impact fee procedures to ensure that public education facilities will be available and adequate to accommodate the need for public education facilities expected to be generated from the school children in new residential developments in the school district, based on the district's level of service standards and capital improvements plan. To assign the cost of such public education facilities on a proportionate share basis to new residential development with an established impact fee for a single-family detached dwelling unit at $4,000, an established impact fee for a multifamily dwelling unit at $1,976, and an established impact fee for a mobile home at $2,618. To authorize intergovernmental agreements between York County and the Clover School District and York County and the town of Clover, defining the respective rights, responsibilities, and obligations of the parties regarding the impact fee, to provide for a public hearing, and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Make a motion to approve with an updated effective date of January 15th, 2021, and a clarification that multifamily includes townhomes.
Say the date again.
January the 15th. We had to move it because the prior date was I think it was a Saturday or Sunday.
Gotcha. So January 15, 2021, and what was the second part?
That multifamily includes townhomes. It wasn't clear in the wording.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Motion passes. Council to consider second reading of an ordinance to adopt the Lake Wylie Small Area Plan as an addition to York Forward, the 2035 York County Comprehensive Plan, pursuant to the Code of Laws of South Carolina. Title 6, Chapter 29, entitled South Carolina Local Government Comprehensive Planning Enabling Act of 1994, to hold a public hearing and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Move to approve, but I have some discussion too. Should I add that? I'm gonna add it. Move to approve, but also to ask for a public meeting in Lake Wylie before third reading, which could either be at our next meeting or at 2 meetings out.
which is our next meeting.
I mean, 2 meetings out.
Okay.
Not, yeah.
Two meetings out. All right. Is there a second? First and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Love?
Yes, we've had a lot of public input. We've gotten a lot of public input from the people in Lake Wiley. We did 2 public meetings. We did an online survey. And then the Planning Commission did hear this, and they did approve it. They had some comments that are not necessarily reflected in what you've seen. And I just feel like the next step should be to go back to Lake Wiley and let the people see and hear what the final proposal is.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, hearing none, motion passes. Council to consider a third reading of an ordinance to amend the York County Code of Ordinances, Chapter 155 zoning code, to add a definition for warehousing, wholesale, and distribution establishments, to provide for such establishments as accessory uses to a manufacturing facility, to amend the table of permitted and special exception uses, to establish supplemental use conditions for warehousing, wholesale, and distribution establishments of a certain size, to require a special exception for such establishments within 2 linear miles of I-77 south of the Catawba River, to invoke the pending ordinance doctrine, and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Move to approve.
Second.
Was a first, second. Any discussion? Ms. Cox?
I do want to thank staff for all the work. Obviously, this is an ordinance that is intended to implement the small area plan that we spent over a year working towards, and have had several public hearings to that effect. In the recommendations of that plan, which was approved, recommendation 4 was to include specifically this special exception, which is intended to address the big boxes that we seem to be having plenty of when it comes to the I-77 corridor, several of which are still remain vacant and don't have folks in them yet. There was a concern from the public, and I believe the city has already done, that they have already taken measures to address this problem. So I'm hopeful that council will see fit to move forward and follow through with what we've done before. As I understand recently that there are some concerns with it, I do want to make sure that council's aware of, and I didn't get a chance to speak with Mr. Roddy in particular, but there's a couple of things that this ordinance does and it doesn't do, and I just want to make sure that's clear. The ordinance does not prohibit warehouse and distribution at all. In fact, if it's a warehouse or distribution facility that's less than 50,000 square feet and it's in a by right district, it gets to go. No matter what, no matter where, no matter if it's in the I-77 corridor. The question applies to these larger boxes, and how do we make sure that we protect the public and address the concerns that they have. And what this ordinance will allow us for those that are more than 50,000 square feet, it simply puts in some protections to include that they be 250 feet from a house, that there be some screening for outdoor storage, that there be no off-site speaker noise, that there be no backing of the trucks in or out of the site. There has to be enough turning radius for the trucks to be in there, and to provide a truck routing plan. In the I-77 corridor, for those over 50,000, it does require a special exception. That decision would go to a different body, but of the portions of the plan that I understand Mr. Roddy is concerned about, I wanted him to be aware that's about 8% of what the I-77 corridor consists of. The majority of that is parcels that wouldn't be inclined to even go that route because of their size or because of existing uses that are already there. And my understanding is that in order to do anything different, in order to carve something out, that would basically legally render this whole ordinance unallowed. And I want to make sure that that's understood, that we can't do that and pass this ordinance, that we can't carve it out. So I'm asking for council to approve this. I think it's a step that is a measured step to make sure that we address the concerns that are on this corridor plan.
Any other discussion? I'll go straight down. Dr. Black.
Whatever.
You. You fella. how quickly they forget. But I have opposed this, the first two readings, not because I was against the intent of the ordinance. I was for the intent of the ordinance. I was just against the pending ordinance, which I think is very unethical, for lack of a better word, and is not transparent to the citizens. But now that's null and void because this is third reading, it goes into effect. So this time I will support it because it is third reading and pending ordinance no longer applies. Mr. Roddy.
I voted for this at second reading and said I wanted to see a map put up before I voted for it on third reading. I was unaware that I had such a small percentage. I was told today that I had a significant portion of this. My District 4 had more than 8% involved in this restriction / requiring warehouses to go through the special exception. I am in favor of the conditions. You know, they're admirable and protect any surrounding neighbors. You know, you don't want, I mean, warehouses run 24/7. You know, you don't want the beep, beep, beeping backing up all throughout the nights that may disturb any nearby residents. But to me, I think any warehouses typically want to locate within a certain distance of I-77 because the main objective is to get your product, get back on the interstate and get going. You know, if warehouses wanted to locate 5 miles off of Interstate 77, I think that's an issue because we all know our roads are not built. A lot of our interior roads are not built to handle trucks so far into or off of the interstate. And so by, saying that a warehouse above 50,000 square feet, 50,000 square feet has to go through a special exception. That just puts another obstacle in the way of a business wanting to locate here. And obviously, regardless if we have 50 warehouses and 30 of them are empty, if someone's willing to make an investment in our community, and a lot of times we see investments come in our community banking on the anticipation of, just like we just seen the gentleman talk about putting a hotel in Fort Mill and trying to say that we have enough in Rock Hill. Well, hotels are built with the anticipation of being able to be occupied. So not just thinking that they have to be filled right now, because if all of them were filled up right now, we'll have someone standing here saying we need more of them. But if someone's willing to take a chance and build them, and I don't want to become the warehouse mecca of the world, but let's face it, warehouses put certain people to work. Not everybody's going to go out and make $80,000 a year jobs. Some people fall into that 14, 15, 16-hour forklift driving, truck loading situation. So we got to be mindful when we're saying we're doing certain things, which the intent is admirable, but if someone makes it a little easier with less obstacles to go a little further down the road in Chester or a little further off the beaten path, they may take those jobs somewhere else. So we're putting things in place that can prohibit, someone going all out to be here. And understand, 77 is a hotbed for trucks going up and down the interstate. I would much rather see them closer to the interstate than trying to maneuver 18-wheeler off the beaten path to get 4 or 5 miles off the interstate. It's a safety concern when they have to come further in, and I just don't like the idea of putting something in place that affects my district that I don't support. And either we can not support this and let the warehouses fall where they may, because if the property's not zoned for a warehouse, it still has to go before the planning commission. It has to get still rezoned. So I think we're just adding another level of obstacles for people to come here and do business. It's not like warehouses are going in and they're not going to get reviewed, because let's face it, a lot of family land now that's under agriculture are being sold off by whether it's the grandkids or the survivors, and they're building warehouses. So I'm not going to support it simply because it affects my district, and I think I have probably one of the least developed districts for as the county goes. So I won't be supporting this tonight.
Any other discussion? Mr. Winkler.
This is a tough one for me in that I understand Mr. Roddy's concerns. I had some of those same concerns when I read this the first time for my district. I said I would not support it being a special exception in my district, but this is for a small area plan that staff and the citizens have been working on for close to a year or more, I think, or right, real close to a year. And I supported that small area plan just like I've supported Councilmember Love's small area plan for their area. I know this small area plan covers 2 areas here instead of just one. The Lake Wiley one is all in one district, so that complicates things a little bit. But we're on 3rd reading now, and you know, it's, I hate to say it, but it's kind of, it's, you know, last reading, and we're trying to change that. And my understanding is that a small area plan covers a small area, and if we, by definition, if we start pulling something out of that small area and excluding it, then we have pretty much blown up the area plan, and it is no longer valid. So for that reason, and the fact that we've had all of this input and all this work in this, I'm really torn, but I will be supporting this tonight. I understand Councilmember Roddy's concerns, but we're at 3rd reading, and the fact that it would change the entire makeup and we'd have to basically start over. You know, I've supported it the first 2 readings, with it being just in that small area plan, and I'll still support it tonight.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
Motion passes. Council to consider 2nd reading of an ordinance to amend an ordinance entitled to establish operating and capital budgets for the operation of the county government of York County for the fiscal year commencing July 1, 2020, to increase tax revenues levied for the county due to updated value of a mill, and to increase building and codes and stamps sold revenue due to updated projections, to add funds for salary adjustments and training and travel, to change appropriation of unassigned general fund balance, to increase general fund transfer to debt reserve fund, to eliminate the annual 2 mil transfer to debt reserve fund, and to provide for other fiscal matters relating to county government.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Item number 5, which was consent number 7. Council to consider 3rd reading of an ordinance to amend the York County Code of Ordinance, Chapter 152, Stormwater Management and Sediment Control Code, so as to amend the county designee primarily responsible for coordination and enforcement of the ordinance, to amend the exemption for single-family residences or their accessory buildings which are separately built and not part of a larger common plan, to amend the exemption for agricultural structures, to provide for a new exemption for emergency repairs, to amend and add definitions, to amend submittal requirements for the simplified stormwater management and sediments control plan, to amend provisions for basic grading and sediment control requirements, to amend regulatory inspection and enforcement penalty provisions related thereto, to amend the provisions for the appeal process, to provide for a public hearing, and to provide for other matters related thereto.
So I'd like to make the motion to defer that, as bad as I hate to move that down the line a little bit, but the first time we passed the stormwater ordinance, there were some little.
Hang on one second. Make your, we'll let you talk. What's your motion?
Okay. Yeah, sorry. Motion to defer.
Is there a specific
Is there a
date?
day? It'd be nice to have a day.
First meeting in October.
First meeting in October it is. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Ms. Love?
Okay. All right, where was I? So when we first approved the stormwater ordinance, there were some things in it that the builder community had issues with, and I have to say that a lot of it is because, you know, those of us who are on council, we're not in that field and we don't understand all of it, and so sometimes changing one thing affects something else, or and we were just not aware of I'm speaking of the zoning committee and then of council when we approved that, so we were not aware of the impact of some of those changes that would have on that community. And so here we are at 3rd reading, and a couple of things have been raised in the last couple of days, and I just want to be 100% positively sure that this is exactly what we need to be doing. And so what I would ask for is that the builder community be able to meet with the county staff one last time, and if they don't show up, that's it, that was the one last time, but just to hear each other out and be sure that this is exactly as it should be.
Any other discussion? The vote is to defer until the first meeting in October. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, hearing none, motion passes. Council to approve amended award recommendation regarding bid number 2691 for facial repairs at the York Library. The lowest responsive and responsible bidder, Datch Enterprises of Hanahan, South Carolina, and the total amount of $63,500, which includes the base bid amount of $59,000 and alternate number 1 in the amount of $4,500 for the replacement of the front columns.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Committee and other reports. Economic Development, Mr. Winkler.
Yes, sir. Committee, Economic Development Committee, or York County Planning and Economic Development Committee, as it's officially called, met on September 2nd at 12 o'clock. Councilmember Hamilton, Cox, and myself were there. We got an update from Economic Development Director on the strategic plan, just for the Economic Development Strategic Plan that we have talked about off and on for the last 6 or 8 months or so, all the way back to when we were talking about a P3 for economic development at one time. And he did a PowerPoint presentation on what we're looking for on that, and I think that would be good for all of the council to see that, not just the 3 of us. As we get into that, and he did correct me in one statement that I had made at the last council meeting when we were talking about the strategic plan. I said that we were paying 50% of the cost and the strategic partners were paying 50%. That was not correct. We are paying about 33% of the cost, and our growth partners and strategic partners are paying the rest of the plan for that. So wanted to make sure I didn't put out misinformation on that. Then we went into executive session. We got an update from our partners at the Department of Commerce in Columbia on the South Carolina Palmetto Sites Program and on some property they've been looking at and studying here in York County for that program. And there were no items for discussion or for vote coming out of executive session. That was all just informational for us.
Any council member new non-agenda comments? I am shocked. Any citizens' concerns? We're on a roll. Executive session motion, please.
Yes, sir. Move we go into executive session for receipt of legal advice on Morningstar litigation, a contractual matter with a Rock Hill TIF. I'm sorry. Just got a note Morningstar will not be on there, so we can remove that one. Contractual matter for potential acquisition of property for a recycling center, and receipt of legal advice on proposed resolution on the use of satellite offices by the Board of Voter Registration and Elections.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are in executive session.
Yes, motion to authorize county management and county attorney to negotiate purchase of property for a recycling center, or alternatively to start condemnation as discussed in executive session.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, hearing none, motion passes. Any other motions? This is the adjourn one.
Yeah, motion to adjourn.
Well, what about your TIF committee? Are you
I'm gonna do that
Just do that
outside of
outside,
this
okay.
right now.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.